Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Audible? Cool. Okay. Just to confirm that I was not kidding about Ajay Devgan. See, there is Ajay Devgan there. And I remember this is from the movie Vijay PATH, which in context of our CLI meetup talk would be Vijay Dollar Path. Alright, I'll move this out here. I'll just keep it here, right? Good enough. Alright, folks, let's start. I am Saurabh Hirani, and I'll be making a. Just a sec. I'll just fold everything. Toggle read view. Alright, cool. By the way, the thing that you're seeing in front of you is Obsidian that is being used to present this talk. Akshay also used it. It is not supposed to be used for presenting, but the geeks who use Obsidian, they are like, why not? Right? If he can read Hacker News on the terminal, why can't I use Obsidian for presenting? So that's why I'm doing this. Right? So we'll start. I'll give a brief intro about myself, then we'll move on to the agenda of the talk. Who am I? I am Saurabh Hirani. I am working as a principal SRE at 1-2N. I hold a very important position there, which is Chief Head of Talent Upskilling. This may sound like it has the word chief, it has the word head. You might think that it is a very important position, but if you convert it into an acronym, this is what they call me in office. CHOTU, right? Chief Head of Talent Upskilling. But I mean, jokes apart, I really enjoy working with folks in terms of upskilling a lot of juniors. We do a lot of interesting boot camps. If you have heard about 1-2N, you would have seen that we have an SRE boot camp, and we do a lot of interesting versions of it within the office also. Like we do a lot of customer case studies, interesting knowledge sharing, and that is one of the main reasons of the culture of 1-2N that is projected the way it is, walking the talk. All right, cool. So shameless plug has been put in. 1-2N is a great company. And
I didn't sponsor.
No. You can transfer the money later. That's fine. Alright, cool. So, okay. So, people start with my pronouns. In this case, I will call out my joke pronouns. They are awk and sad instead of he and him, because my jokes are awkward and sadistic. Alright. Alright, cool. So, we'll start. Why should you attend this talk and what's in it for you? Right? So we'll see a very interesting, wrong presentation. In fact, I should have opened this one. All right. So material is the same. So yes, just a sec. Let me fold this. What's in it for you? It's an interesting debugging story around zshrc and this thing called Kiro CLI. It's okay if you don't know these terms. We'll just break it down and we'll talk about some prerequisites so that we are all on the same page. Right. So if you want to ensure that you have full context of this talk, you need to know what these three terms are. First is Kiro CLI. Now Kiro CLI is let me just share and show you. If I just type Kiro CLI is Amazon's answer to Claude Code. Right. So it is a coding assistant. Right. It's a CLI interface to interact with the Kiro AI coding agent developed by Amazon, and this is it. You type in some stuff and you get answers, right? We'll see how this is relevant to our talk. The second part is tmux. Raise your hand if you have not used tmux. All right, a couple of folks, right? So tmux, the word tmux, it stands for terminal multiplexer. It is a way to manage your terminal experience in a very productive, simple and very cool way. What I mean by that is typically when you use your browser, you use multiple tabs and all, right? And your terminal also, you keep on opening multiple tabs, 1, 2, 3, 4 and all of that, right? Now this is the opening of tabs in any terminal is very tied to the terminal you use. If you are on Linux, you will have the terminal emulator that is doing that. If I'm on Mac, I'm using Ghostty, which is another terminal emulator, and I get tabs. But if you use something like tmux, you can do you can create tmux and then you can create these tabs. If you see this 1, 2, 3, 4 stuff that is going on at here, right? So you can create tabs, you can split tabs, you can do a vertical split, you can do all sorts of stuff, right? So it makes your switching tabs very easy, right? And one of the coolest things that you can do with tmux is it can show you the time, right? But that's about tmux, right? Then there is a tool that is built on top of tmux. It's called Tmuxinator. Cool choice of name, because what it says is that if you use tmux, let us say that I'm using tmux for my day-to-day development, and every day that I come to my terminal, I open one vim file here, I run one top command here, and I run one another top command here. Let's say I do this every day, and whenever I shut down my machine, I lose all of this context, right? Vim top. Not this is not how you do the development, but just as an example, right? So Tmuxinator is a tool that says that I will help you declaratively call out the terminal layout you want, and you can use it in the future. What I mean by that is, I'll just close this. If I just do Tmuxinator start sample, you will see that I get a bunch of tabs pre-opened with the names. One is called editor, one is called server, one is called logs, one is called XYZ, and so on, right? The way this is happening is I have a declarative way of calling out that create these windows, in that name this window server, run the stop command and all, right? So it is a layer on the top of tmux that helps you do project management. It's like, in your editor you should have these windows open, right? So this was my setup, and this is the context you need, right? So I was using Tmuxinator, I was using tmux, I was happy, everything was going on well, right? So before the problem started, how did I use this? So I used to come to my terminal, I used to run this command, I used to get my right tabs, and everything was working fine. Everyone is happy. This is just running a sleep and then printing a date, right? Dummy commands. Everything was working fine. Something happened, right? So let us run that something first. So let's come here. Let me open that in VS Code. Just a sec. I think I should change this thing to theme to node. Just a sec. Node. Yeah. We'll have the same font here. I'll increase the font size a bit. Yeah. Tmuxinator. Okay. Here. Yes. So first, something happened. Now I'm not going to tell you what that something is, but let me just run that something. This happened, right? Now if I start my Tmuxinator, the session, there will be one thing that will be off. In fact, let me just first show you without that something. Let me undo that, and then let me show you how did it work before. I am running a command. If you see, vim is being typed, I get vim, I get htop, I get these. Every command that I provided in that Tmuxinator file is being executed, right? Now let us do something that breaks that. Something happened. Now if I start this, see what will happen. Vim command is being typed, htop is being typed, but htop is not executed. Htop type not executed. Sleep type not executed, right? A command is being typed somewhere, but it is not getting executed, right? So essentially I have to read this like, okay, sleep 5 and date, right? I have to do this by hand. Then I have to come here, htop, right? So in a way, that is the title of the talk. Tmuxinator is teasing you a bit that I am there but not quite there yet, right? I have done something and something has messed up, and you are now on your own to do this, right? Now this is very irritating, but I could not figure out why this is happening, right? So I thought that, okay, I can't figure this out, so let me have a workaround. Tmuxinator is impacted. There is odd behavior in opening windows. You have already saw that. The command is shown but not executed. And I implemented a workaround. So what I did was that, okay, you don't want to play nice with me, I'll run this, and then what I'll do is that I will understand how tmux works. So I looked up how Tmuxinator works. So what Tmuxinator essentially does is that it takes your tmux session and it runs this command, tmux send keys. So tmux can send keys to a session. It's saying to the first window send vim, to the second window send htop, and cm is control m is just the enter key, right? It's saying press enter key. Like, okay, let me just run this sample commands. If I do this now, just a sec, I think, let me kill this guy. Let me do the something first again. Something. Let me start this, right? So right now, if you see, htop is written but not executed. Now, if I send these keys, send these sample commands here, you will see the commands got sent and this got executed. So I was like, okay, I have to do one more step, right? But there was this nagging feeling that I'm doing a hacky workaround. I'm not solving the problem, right? But this went on for a while, and I was like, okay, this is how it is. Some things you should not delve deep into unless you have a workaround. So my ritual changed from doing tmuxinator start sample to tmuxinator start sample and then running the sample commands, right? In parallel, obviously, the state of a system had changed. Something had happened that led to this, right? But in parallel, I had also installed Kiro CLI. I was trying this out, and I had installed this, and I had done this important thing in Kiro CLI, which is enable autocomplete, right? I had so it's Kiro says that I'll give you a Claude-like UI, Claude-like terminal interface to work with me, but I'll also help you on the CLI. In the sense, I'll help you with stuff like doing autocomplete. I was like, okay. But then when I went to my terminal here, if you see, I'm doing ls. There is no autocomplete. Nothing is happening. This is just usual ls. This is how ls is happening, right? But then I realized I was using this terminal called Ghostty. Now, if I go to a VS Code terminal, right, which is this one, both of them, one thing is important. If you see, if you go to any terminal and you print this guy is saying my terminal program is tmux. If I come here, this guy will say my terminal program is this is also tmux, but let me show it to you. Okay, let me show it to you without tmux. Sx. Yeah, if I do a echo term program here, this is Ghostty. So depending on the terminal program, I thought that maybe VS Code has auto completion, right? So if I do this now, if I come here, if I open a new tab, so if you see, I get this funky drop down that comes in, right? So this is what Kiro CLI promised, and it gave me. I was like, okay, this is good, but this seems like an over-eager programmer throwing hints at my face. I don't want this. Like, this is good enough for me. The Ghostty experience is good enough for me. The VS Code experience of giving me this drop down and then me doing this was not fun. Like, okay, I don't want this, right? And this has nothing to do with the tmuxinator part. Tmuxinator, I found a workaround, I lived happily with it. But this got in my way, so I got irritated. So I was like, okay, I want to disable this. So I googled how to disable this. Again, the cool part is that Ghostty did not take this this drop down thingy. So Ghostty was fine, it was clean. But at the same time, VS Code got ugly. So I was like, no, I don't want this in VS Code. I want to fix this, right? And what I did was that I googled this. Okay, how do I disable this? How do I disable autocomplete in this thing? I could have done it through the UI also, but at that time the UI was different, so I could not figure that out from the UI. So I was like, okay, you have to run this command, and then it will uninstall any auto completion that you have. Like, okay, let's do that. So let us run this, right? So I uninstalled the auto completions, and now if you see, if I open a new terminal in VS Code also, if I do this, you won't see the drop down thingy and all of that. I'm like, okay, this is fine, everything is working. However, doing that also fixed my tmuxinator problem, right? You guys remember what was happening in tmuxinator, right? I open it, I see the command, it just doesn't run. But now that I disabled it, right, I disabled something else. I did this, and now if I open tmuxinator, see what happens. My htop runs, my sleep runs, right? Let's verify this. So if there is an uninstall, there should also be an install, right? So I did an install, and let us kill this session, and let's start sample again. Now if you see, I'll get that old ugly behavior. Htop is seen but not executed, right? You see stuff doesn't get executed. But when I do an uninstall, everything works, right? So this means that this uninstall had something to do with tmuxinator. So I have a hint that two things are correlated with each other. We have not debugged the solution problem yet, but we know something is tied to something else, right? Okay. So this is what the something code that I showed you earlier does. If I go to talks, just a sec, GitHub, okay, I have to, this is, I will come here, GitHub, Saurabh Hirani. And the reason why you are seeing this here is that because the shell is already loaded with the corresponding files and all, right? So I'll remove this. See, this is how ugly it is. It just gets in the way, right? So I don't know how to disable this, but let's GitHub, Saurabh Hirani, talks. Right, let's go to Tmuxinator tease. Then let me show you what something is. How do I remove this thing? Let me just select something. Enter the current directory. Okay, that's fine. Let me gone. Alright, so if I do something.sh, this is what was happening. I was installing the dot files, right? And if I undo something, I was uninstalling the dot files, right? So this is where normally in the pre-LLM era I would have given up. Like, okay, this is how it is, it's a quirk, this is how it works, right? But I was like, okay, I have access to AI, let me try and debug this further. What do we do now, right? So what's going on? So, so we are like, dot files are being changed and I am using the zshrc shell. So the only dot file that is important is zshrc. Like what's going on? Let's see what dot file gets changed. So let us run something and let us do a head of zshrc. So you see, it says that I am adding this pre block. Like, okay, let me do a tail. I am adding this post block. So it is doing something. It is messing around with my zshrc, and I don't like that. Like you should have asked me. You enabled autocomplete, which is great, but then I should also have figured, right? Something will have to sit between me typing something and zsh executing it and then giving me a dropdown. That is Kiro CLI. So it is doing something, right? So let's see what it is doing and why it is doing what it is doing. So let's start with the first part, that the pre-block. This is called the pre-block. It is something that starts, right? Now what does the pre-block generate? Now if you have to go through this file, right, I'll just, so this is just checking this file exists, source this file. Now if I were to open this file, just a sec, yeah. If I were to open this file, you'll see that this does an eval on this. Like, okay, then if I were to take this command, right, and if I were to run this, I'll get an ugly shell script that gets dumped on my screen. Okay, so I was like, okay, this is the shell script that is getting sourced or executed, and I have to read this and I have to understand this and find out what's going on. So I threw this at an LLM and I asked, what can mess around with the characters passed to the shell in this script? I asked that, right? And I found this line, right? It said that this is probably doing something. I got a vague hint from the LLM, right? It is saying that I'm doing an exec -a. So an exec command is being run within my shell script, right? For those of you, just as a primer, exec is a way to execute a command in Linux. That is not entirely true. You fork it and then you execute it. But let's see the difference between the two, right? Let me show you what is actually happening here. So let me open a new terminal, right? If I type let this $, if I do, first of all, let me just undo that, uninstall that, so that this thing doesn't hit us in the face. Can someone tell me what will this print? Sorry? Current process. So this thing will print the current process's PID, and my current process right now is my shell. So this is my shell's PID. Okay. Now if I were to do exec zsh, right, this only, and if I were to do echo $, what do you think will happen? New PID. Okay, one answer is new PID. Any other answer? Same PID, right? Right. Any anything in between new and same? Slightly same, little different. Right? Okay, cool. So it prints the same PID. Why does it print the same PID? Because, and if I do an exit, what will happen now? Will my terminal close? Yes? Okay. Yes, that my terminal will close. Anyone with a no? Alright, so my terminal will close. Anyone with a maybe? Alright, let's do exit. Right? It did close, but let's try this again, right? I have echo $, I do exec zsh, right? And I do exit. Now one might say that, you know what, I executed a command, so that command should have exited, not the entire terminal. So what happened was that when we did an exec zsh, my current command got current process got replaced by a new process and got the same PID. So if I do exit, I am actually exiting the zsh that is running in the place of the old zsh, in the place. So this is closing my terminal. But if I do echo $, if I do zsh now what will happen? See, there is no exec in front of it. So what will be the PID? Will it be the same or different here? Different. Anyone with same? Right. So let's do this. It's a different PID. And now if I do an exit, it will not exit my terminal. It exits the zsh that I forked, right? And if I do an exit again, then like, okay, now you are going to exit your main terminal, right? So a very, a simpler way to visualize this is if I were to do a PS tree, right? So what happened was that I started, tmux, which is fine. I did an exit. In fact, let me just show you without an exit, right? So let's do this. Now let's do the same thing. Echo $. Let us do an exec zsh, and then let's do a PS tree, and let's see. So if you see, tmux ran and only one zsh instance you are seeing, right? Because we replace the previous zsh with this zsh, right? So if I do an exit, everything goes away. But I won't do an exit now. I'll open a new terminal. I'll do echo $. I'll do just zsh, and then I'll do a PS tree. So if you see, now you have two zshs, right? And this is, what will be the PID of the second zsh? Can someone tell me? 80232, right? So that's 80232, right? So the difference between this and this is, the first one is that we did an exec, so zsh got replaced, and the second one we did, we just typed the zsh, so there was a fork of zsh, and then I ran zsh, right? So there was a fork and exec, so there's a difference there, right? So what has all of this to do with what we saw, right? So we are just building a foundation that we saw the command exec. Let us first try to understand it before we understand the problem, right? So AI is telling us something is causing this, exec minus A is causing this, right? So we saw this, right? If you do directly do zsh, something gets forked, you get a different PID, a child gets created. If you exec, no child gets created, right? And exec in that way is ruthless, like most executives are. But let's move on. So now what is happening is that Kiro CLI is doing something here with this exec thing, right? Let's try the same activity, but let us have this install and uninstall thing going on before our work happens, right? So we do this. Like, we'll just unravel the mystery in 5 minutes, but stay with me. So first, let us install the dot files. Install dot files. Then now in a new tab, I'll do echo $. All right. So nothing surprising, and I'll do a PS tree here, right? See what is happening. Do you see the word Kiro here? Yes. So something is happening that is causing this command to come in between here, right? So let's keep this as it is. Now let me do the same thing. I want to keep this actually available. So let's keep this here. I'll do a uninstall here, and now I will do the same thing, echo $. Then I'll do a PS tree. Now compare the first one. This is where my dot files got enabled, and this one, the second one, right? This is where nothing was enabled, right? So if you see, this has lesser number of lines than the previous one. So this guy is doing something, right? So what is happening is that my tmux runs, then as soon as I enabled my dot files, when I open a new terminal, Kiro CLI runs this command, right? And that command opens up a zsh, and then that zsh runs whatever commands I run. But in this case, the first case, where nothing is there, everything was working fine, tmux is there, zsh is there, and then PS tree. Nothing is between the your terminal emulator and your shell, right? So something is sitting in between, and it makes sense that it is sitting in between. Otherwise, how will it irritate you with these drop downs, right? Not possible. Something is sitting and intercepting something in between, right? So yeah, one important thing, one small quirk, y minus a, right? So a very a simple cute thing that you will see if you do a minus a. If you do exec top, you will see top command running here. But if you do exec minus a, you can do something like this, down top. What this does is that if I were to do ps tree grep down, you will see that there is a down command running. So actually the top command is running and we minus a gives it the name down, right? So similarly here, what is happening is that exec minus a is running something. If you see here, minus a is running something with this name. So the name that you see here, ps tree, just a sec, p echo down, not here, I think one where we enabled this thing. Okay, let me just re-enable this. Install, open terminal, ps3. So see, zsh is actually running zsh, but it is naming this as Kiro CLI term. So it makes sense also, right? If I just run zsh, how will I know it is my zsh or Kiro CLI zsh? So okay, I'll give you a hint, right? That this is there. Okay, so something is sitting and it is doing something and it's sitting in between, right? Now we saw fork and exec, right? Also, if you are too lazy to try out the difference between fork and exec, run this command on your CLI. It will clearly tell you what happens when you run this. Do not try this in your home directory. I'll just increase the font size a bit. How do I increase the font size? Yeah. This is a fork bomb. Essentially what is happening is, there is a function by the name of colon that is getting created and it is recursively calling itself and it will keep on calling itself till, something bad happens. So, but the important thing is, do not think of this as a Gen Z emoji. This is dangerous stuff, right? So, alright. So, Kiro CLI is sitting between your terminal emulator, your Ghostty, your tmux and your shell, right? Which is valid because it needs to create a pseudo terminal, the PTY thing. It has to intercept everything, right? And it has to capture commands and do fancy UIs. And at the same time, this is very important for us. In our Tmuxinator part, it has to pass data transparently. It is supposed to say that if you send some keys to a terminal, I have to take them and I have to pass them on, right? But why is it doing that printing thing, right? So if you see this script, the actual script that tmux generates, GitHub, Saurabh Hirani talks, Tmuxinator tease. This is the pre-block that Tmuxinator CLI, the Kiro CLI generates, right? So it actually says get initial text. So it is saying whatever text was sent to that previous terminal by Tmuxinator, get it, right? And then replay it in the new terminal that I create, right? So it is trying to do the right thing, but there is, it might be missing out on, while reading it might be missing out on an enter key, or it might be missing out on something. It's not replaying what it is told to replay in the right way, right? So it is intercepting, but it is not replaying, right? So it tries to ensure that something was piped. If something was piped, capture it and replay it, right? But it is trying to do the right thing, but that's not happening, right? So it is not, and if you see here, it is also a little bit of luck by chance thing, right? If you see, if I cut here and if I, let me install the files again, and if we do this, right? So if you see the stop got, the vim and stop got executed. So it was able to pass this inside that ZSH part, but it wasn't able to pass these guys. Like ZSH forked off before that could, Tmuxinator, Kiro CLI could do the right thing, right? Mostly a timing issue. So the one-liner impact is that when Kiro CLI term receives the consume standard in, it is not properly preserving something and all, right? I could not debug this further because Kiro CLI term is a, it's a binary, right? But I understood that this is the case. And there was a very subtle, this is where the mystery ends, but there was a very subtle impact of this also, right? Let me show you. Let us uninstall the dot files and let us run this command. So what this command does is that it is taking your shell. It is minus I is that created in interactive mode, which means that load your ZSH and then just run the exit command. So this is just a small one-liner to check the speed at which your shell is able to load. Now if you see this, This is 20 milliseconds odd, right? Which is great. But let us install the dot files. And let us rerun this. Same command, right? Something is messy, right? Let me open a new terminal and then try it. Right? So although it did not fail as spectacularly as that, I could have left it at here and then you would say, oh, 800 milliseconds versus this thing. Then, but if you see, this is 40 milliseconds and compare this with that previous guy. That's 20 milliseconds. So around 20 milliseconds latency is being added here, right? Now, I will not do anything with extra 20 milliseconds in my life, but I can save them. So I will save them, right? So I was like, okay, I'll uninstall this. This is not fun. It's not required and all. So we uninstalled it, right? But so this is where the story ends. But the key takeaway from this setup is the value that you get out of a tool is not equal to the cost that you incur for it, right? You should know the difference between cost and value, right? So know the value being provided and the cost you are incurring for it. The cost I was incurring for it is that I was losing my Tmuxinator thing. Sure, I had a workaround, and but I had to do that irritating drop-down thing. I had to lose out on those precious 20 milliseconds of my life and all. So I was like, no, I don't want this, right? And you have to ask yourself, do you actually want your shell process to be replaced? Do you want someone to sit between you and your shell, right? And most importantly, the code is cheap, show me the talk. This is the reverse of what Linus Torvalds said in like 25 years ago. He said talk is cheap, show me the code. With LLMs doing a lot of work for us, this line is sort of a hat tip to Kailash Nath. He actually wrote if people would have read about this is just recent, just I think day before or something, he wrote this wonderful essay on code is cheap. He essentially is saying that LLMs can give you fast answers, right? And that is threatening to a lot of folks in terms of, like, for me also, I feel that I spent years learning something and this guy can just do it like this. But I feel that it is more important now than ever to share your knowledge in this written form by going deep, by learning better, right? Because now you have the tools to learn more, right? So if you get fast answers, do not stop there. I could have stopped at the workaround, right? But I was like, I have a tool that can help me understand this better, right? So sometimes if you stop at fast answers, that will lead to slow learning, right? Sounds counterintuitive. I counterintuitively said counterintuitive. So okay, so slow down, dig deep, ask questions, and obviously share your knowledge. And CLI meetup is the best place to share these things because this is not Golang, this is not SRE, but yeah. All right, so wraps it up. A small post-credit scene, right? So while I was doing all of this check, right, I did not initially have 20 milliseconds of speed, right? I was actually using Oh-My-Zsh, and this was my original speed. And this is a topic for a different talk. So essentially what I'm doing is that I'm copying this Oh-My-Zsh to zshrc and I'm running that same command. Now if you see here, this was my original speed, right? But then when I was doing this, fixing this problem, I encountered some other things also that I fixed, and I also came across this really cool tool called Zim framework or something. You should Google it up. If you do this, now compare this with, all I'm doing is that I have two zshrc files. I'm just copying one of Oh-My-Zsh and one of this, and look at the difference. Look at the speed, in fact, just feel the speed, like take a moment to see how sluggish this feels versus how smooth this feels. Like it's like, you will not know how tired you are till you rest. So it is like this only. You will not know how slow your terminal is till you see a fast terminal, right? But this is a teaser. We'll mostly, hopefully in the next meetup, we'll talk about this. And that's it. These are the links. All of this talk is put up on GitHub. Even the notes, they are on Obsidian, they're in Markdown and all. And mandatory PJ at the end. If this was the Matrix. Show of hands, who has seen the movie Matrix? The first one, the original, the good one, right? Right. There is this line, right? There is no spoon in that movie, right? In the context of this talk, there isn't a fork either. It was just exec all along. It was messing around with us, right? So that's it. All right, cool. Thank you.